we learned a lot of habits from our childhood, from our experiences, and that's why we have to be very conscious about what we're bringing to the table, how it has impacted us, and then how we can take that information and the things that we know today and change and bring a level of consciousness, specificity, intention to every single thing that we're doing. Hey, y'all, welcome to the Happy Life Agenda. I'm Danny C. And today I want to talk to you about what is keeping you stuck. I have had some amazing conversations recently that have really given me some clarity. And I wanted to share that with you because as I had these conversations, I recognized that, I'm not the only one that's struggling with some of these things and feeling this way. And so I thought it would be a great conversation for us to have. So I don't know about you, but oftentimes it feels like you take 3 steps forward in life and then only to take 2 steps back when something happens. And it just becomes this reoccurring pattern. And for me, I've started to recognize that I have a lot of habits and a lot of patterns that I've been repeating in my life for, you know, possibly all 4 decades, definitely for 2 decades. And, when I have conversations with people, there's a lot of like, this is just part of life and that's how it is. And since I've been on this journey, that whole attitude of this is just life really is something that keeps us stuck. And when you look at some of the science and the research, by the time that we're 35, we're stuck in these patterns. Our personality is kind of set and we kind of do the same things over and over again. There can be, a move, having a baby, getting married. Some of those things will change, but if you really sit down, especially if you're my age, I'm in my 40s, and you go back and look at your life and the things that you've done, you will see that in a sense, you really keep repeating a lot of the same things over and over again. And this can be really traumatic on your life because as you age, you're going to be, I say this a lot, you're going to be filled up to here with things. And what happens is that this gets into the cells of your body. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot. And these are the things that age us and keep us old. And, they harm our cognition and they harm our physical health. And so it's not until we get to a point where we have disease, a death, a traumatic death, a near death experience, or some type of other big event that kind of wakes us up and says, oh my gosh, I need to change. So for me personally, I started analyzing the patterns of my life. I guess it's been over a year, but more recently I've been hit kind of hard with like, what are the things that I keep doing and that I've been repeating? And I was really surprised when I really sat down and looked at it on the things that I had been doing over and over and over again that were keeping me stuck. And I can even go back and look in my journal and recognize that, God put in front of me some of these patterns and I just kind of refused to listen. Or maybe, the other things that I was working through, I just couldn't see or hear it. And so now I'm in a place where I'm like, whoa, these things have to change. One of the big ones is that, I, we know that I like to work out, right? And so as I was moving into my authentic self, I was beginning to feel this like push pull of like, should I be working out? And you'd be like, well, that's crazy because working out's a positive habit. But I didn't know until recently why working out kept coming up as this thing that I might not supposed to be doing. And then I'm freaking out like, is my authentic self not someone who works out? And what it is that I let working out become this habit that I didn't do with specificity or intention. It became a box that I checked. And when I set out to work out way back when I started this habit, I did it because I wanted to make the softball team in high school. And so I had to be able to run a mile in 7 minutes. I don't even think I could do that now, but I did do it back then. And there was a very specific goal and a very specific purpose for why I was working out. When I became an adult, I started working at a gym and I was fascinated by exercise and, wanted to be able to lift heavier weights and learn different types of exercises so I could find something that I loved and be able to improve my athletic performance. And then as functional training became a thing and I moved more into the personal training space, I started to dive more into the research and why things are the way that they are and realized that if I wanted to be able to be mobile for most of my life and be able to do the activities of daily living, I was going to have to train for my entire life. But move into a functional type of training. And that's moving in different planes of motion and being able to do things just like carry your groceries from your car, walk up a flight of stairs, be able to react quickly when something happens as far as movement goes. And, I'm kind of off on a tangent here, but if you're someone who isn't living that way, you might want to think about that, because that's really important as you age, is being able to move that way, and it prevents you from breaking a hip or not getting the vitality out of life if you don't know how to move in all those different planes of motion. Now that I've had my daughter, my goal is to be able to keep up with her. If you're 45 years old and you have a 7-year-old, let me tell you, that's a busy place to be. But making that my goal, and that's been more recent, since I've had this kind of shift in who I am and why I'm here. As you all know, that's what the Happy Life Agenda is about. I've realized that my workouts now have a new intention, and that intention is to be able to keep up with her. And now that I've reset that, I'm seeing greater results in my workout, and I'm also having some of the best moments of my life playing with my daughter and keeping up with the things that she wants to do. And I can't tell you how fruitful and rewarding that is, and how good I feel each day in knowing, A, that my true self likes to work out, but then also that when I take that time and dedicate that time to it, it has a specific goal and a specific purpose. And when you have specificity and intention behind what you're doing, it takes on a whole new meaning. Now, that's a really positive example, because I didn't want this to come down like, hey, why are you scrolling on social media? Why are you watching TV? Why are you getting drunk all the time? Why are you eating fast food? Because those are some habits that I have to look at and unravel from. And I can tell you that, TV was a big one for me. I used to dedicate quite a bit of time to watching TV, but as I've gone on this journey, that was probably one of the first things to go. I still, dabble in it, so to speak, every once in a while, because I still have, friends and family members that we enjoy movies and we enjoy TV, but it now has its place, and it's not like something that I make time for every single day, because I recognized that there really wasn't a lot of intention or necessity to give time to that in my life. And I'm really grateful that I had that epiphany. Now, it has been a little bit challenging because it was a big part of something that we did in our household. And so that would be my other word of warning to you is, if you're young and you're listening to this, really take a look at the habits that you're forming, the patterns that you're creating, the things that you're doing, and start thinking about that specificity and intention behind everything that you do. Because you do not want to wake up 45 years old or 44 years old and be like, oh my gosh, I have all of these habits and all of these friends and all these people that count on me for things. And some of the things, are going to need to fall out. And that can be a real rub. And so, I mean, even something as simple as watching TV can really change your family dynamic. So, if you are feeling stuck, and I know that was a big thing for me, I kind of asked that question is, what am I doing with my life? Fortunately for me, it didn't have any big event as far as like any death in the family, any disease. I just was like, I'm missing out on time with my daughter. And if you're asking yourself that question, really look at the habits and the patterns that are in your life, and you'll be surprised at what you see. Because we have been told our entire lives that if you work hard, you go to college, you get a degree, you go to work, and you work really hard, that you're going to be rewarded. And, you get married and you get the white picket fence and you get the house and you get the car, and everything's supposed to be great. But we now live in a society where that's not true. And a lot of that stuff was set up way back when, and it really catered to a very small portion of the population. And so now that you see that that dynamic and that way of living has sustained for hundreds of years, or I guess 100 years, and we're like, seeing rampant anxiety and depression, the middle class is shrinking. Surveys show that everyone hates their job. Many people feel like they can't find a job. Many people are worried if they're going to be able to keep their job. And I mean, it's a type of capitalism, and it's not that I'm against capitalism, because there is a function, but it's not working. And it's because we weren't put on this earth to do what some man told us to do a long time ago, and that is, work 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. And if you work really hard, then you'll be able to buy a car. I mean, Henry Ford was a remarkable person. He probably lived into his purpose, but he did set that up. And I mean, was that the 1800s? So he set that up so people could buy cars. Like he was like, well, if everybody's always working, when are they going to buy and drive a car? So he created the weekend and he set up shifts so that they could earn the money to buy the car, and then they would use the car to go places. So if you really think about that, we're living in a very, very backward, old state of mind. So if you stop and ask yourself, who am I and why am I here? And you look to, for me, it's God, but to whomever divine you believe in and say, who am I and why am I here? And you start listening for that divine and knowing why you're here, you'll be shocked and amazed and surprised and elated to find that that purpose for being here and that true self wasn't designed to sit behind a desk necessarily and slog away for someone else's dreams to come true. You have something very specific that you were put on this earth to do. Now, I'm not saying that a corporate job is the root of all evil, because it's not. I have worked for companies where I really believed in their mission and their vision. Where things fell apart for me is when it stopped being about the mission and the vision that I was part of, and it started being about money. And that is a mistake that a lot of organizations are making, is that when they, look at what they need to do, it's always about where's the revenue, where's the revenue, where's the revenue. Well, what about the customer? Because if you focus on your customer and you're making your customer happy, then the revenue will follow. And why do companies exist? Well, yes, they exist to make money, but they don't make money if they don't have any customers. So we're kind of like in this weird conundrum, and of course, if you don't have any employees, you also can't make any money and you can't satisfy your customers. So you can see how we've created this vicious cycle, and now people are starting to bump up against it and say, okay, who am I? What am I doing here? And should I even be working for this organization? So these are really important questions to ask yourself, because one of your habits could be waking up in the morning, brushing your teeth, drinking your coffee, commuting to work, and going to a job. And when you ask yourself, why am I going to this job? To make money. Well, I'm going to ask you the next question, which is, there are a lot of ways to make money. So is this really how you want to spend your life, making money? Because we need money. It makes the world go round. That is the truth. But what should you be doing with your time and making money that, literally fills your cup and gives you the time with the people that you want to spend time with, or to do the things that you want to do? Again, for me, I wasn't doing anything I wanted to do, and I wasn't spending time with the people that I love the most. So what is the purpose of going to work every single day to make someone else a bunch of money, and all I'm doing is working? So really think about that and take a look at those habits and kind of determine, like, hey, what are the things I need to shift? And it's not just the bad habits. The bad habits need to shift, but also some of those good habits. Like, are you living with specificity and intention? A lot of people say that they hate working out. Well, maybe you haven't played around enough to find the thing that gets you excited about working out. Because we're going to talk in later courses and some of the things that I have planned for the future, that, one of the big pillars of why you are here and your purpose is movement and moving your body, and connecting your body to nourishment. So if eating right and moving aren't on your list, definitely put those goals on your list. And then connecting to people, and if people aren't at the center of what you're doing and why you're here, then again, I really challenge you to take a long, hard look at your life. You'll see on a podcast that I did recently that we talk about deep connection and deep internal work, and what it takes to live at a level of consciousness, or what it takes to get to living to a level of consciousness. And it's really that deep analyzing of your own life and your habits. And then what are you doing? And then waking up every morning with specificity and intention and moment to moment. Why am I doing this? Like, I think I put on a list in a blog is, why are you yelling at your kids? I, used to kind of really come in with a pretty intense force when I was upset about something my daughter did. But then I realized that's just making her feel badly. And I need to come at it with more curiosity, because she's still learning. She doesn't know. So yelling doesn't do anything. All that does is teach her that, if she does something and somebody finds out, she's going to get in trouble. Whereas if it's an understanding, then it improves her learning. And so again, it's that habit. But we learned a lot of habits from our childhood, from our experiences, and that's why we have to be very conscious about what we're bringing to the table, how it has impacted us, and then how we can take that information and the things that we know today and change and bring a level of consciousness, specificity, intention to every single thing that we're doing. So if you take a look at your life and you feel like you're just checking boxes, it's time to break out of the boxes and really, really say, what am I doing? Who am I? Why am I here? And is it going to get me to the things that I want to achieve? And if there's anything on that list that doesn't align with your goals and doesn't align with your vision of your best life, then it's time to start unwinding from that. And that's the whole, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's really uncomfortable. Let me tell you, like I said, the whole TV thing, surprisingly, was really uncomfortable. Right now, I'm looking at my sugar intake. Now, I've never been one who's like big on sugar, but I've been diving back into my research on nutrition. And sugar is really at the epicenter of a lot of disease, a lot of advanced aging. And if we're not really careful about the things that we put into our bodies, we're also going to have struggles as we age. Movement alone isn't enough. And so I really, really want to drive home, what are those habits that are keeping you stuck, and how many of the habits are you doing just because that's what life is supposed to be? That's what society tells us to do. Society is not your maker. Society is not your keeper. It's a guideline that some man or some person made a long time ago, and we've just been following it because that's what we think that we're supposed to do. But we were created in the image of God, and he says, if you will be blessed if you live out your purpose. Basically, use your gifts and you live out your purpose. And so if you're not doing that, you're shortchanging yourself, because this life was not meant to be suffering, and it was meant to be something amazing. And you just need to uncover what that is. And it's a lot of deep work. And yeah, you might still have to, go to this job right now that you're realizing is just a grind and just a box check. But once you start unraveling that, then you can start putting the pieces in place to move on to that, to move on to something that it has more purpose, more intention, more specificity. And waking up with purpose, specificity, and intention, and moving through your day with that is amazing. And it's not something that happens overnight. I've been working on it for over a year, and I'm still unraveling a lot of patterns and habits, but the clarity that I'm getting on which habits need to go and how they need to go and what I need to do is so much simpler than it was, over a year ago when I started this. And so I just really encourage you to take a look at those things. Another key point I want to make about this is, a lot of our habits and our patterns are driven by mass consumerism. Again, a man-made situation where we believe that we need certain things in order to be able to be functional. And we think that we have to have, so much money to be able to buy those things. But if you listen to the stories of people who have healed their bodies, from just, engaging in laughter, connecting with people, meditating, hypnosis, all of those things, it's because they took their mind to a place where it needs to go and reached a higher level. And they focused on the things that are important, and they used their own body to heal themselves. I mean, I listened to a podcast where one guy had been in pain for almost 2 decades, but when he recognized that when he was laughing, his pain went away. How could he tap into the dopamine and to the oxytocin and to the serotonin and to all of these different chemicals that our body makes naturally, which actually a lot of prescription drugs that block pain are made from synthetic versions of those. And, he got his pain to go away. And so what are you buying into that isn't a truth? And when you start unraveling that, you're going to find that you have plenty of money, and you have plenty of time, and you have plenty of space to do the things that you want to do, and you have the capability all within yourself. So take a look at the habits that are and patterns that are, kind of keeping you stuck. You'll be really amazed at what you see. If you want to have more conversations about your goals and your patterns and your habits and how to kind of unravel those and then start moving towards your big, bolder goals, that's what the Clarity Program is all about. It's designed for us to have a conversation about where you want to go and what are some of the things that you're keeping you stuck. And then we start putting an action plan together to be able to unravel those and get to those big, bolder goals. So I'm Danny C. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to click subscribe below and follow us on social to keep in touch with this conversation. Have a good one.